Hi, students. Good to see you all here. Sorry to get you all on a Sunday evening, but we really felt we should get the most of our guest time today. And really, the idea was that our admitted students in particular would get to know about some of the activities that we are lining up for the rest of the year for your benefit. And a big part of that is our partnership, which was recently concluded with the Indian National Association of Legal Professionals, an august body of lawyers and policy professionals who are looking into education, especially legal and policy education, from a very interesting and new perspective, a lot of which really matches with what we want to do at the Daksha Fellowship. So I'm really happy to announce that we are on a one-year partnership with INALP, and we hope for the inaugural cohort of Daksha Fellows to do a lot of things in collaboration with INALP and make use of this opportunity to really learn and improvise as we go along the path of the Daksha Fellowship and our pedagogic journey. So our guest for today is Mr. Manuj Bhardwaj. Manuj is Executive Secretary at the INALP, and he's also the founder partner at BSN Legal Consultants and Policy Consultants. To give you a very quick overview about Manuj and the work that he has done so far, he's a lawyer by training, and he wears many hats really. A lot of his work is focused on legal and policy advisory and strategic consultancy, particularly in the space of trade and investment law. He also has a lot of interest in matters relating to foreign policy and climate change, so therefore making him a truly interdisciplinary personality. His areas of expertise include international economics, fiscal policy, intellectual property rights, trade and investment laws, international refugee laws, cyber law, data privacy, artificial intelligence, and international arbitration. Manuj, after his training as a lawyer and practicing law, has also dabbled in public policy. In fact, he's got a dual master's and MSc in public policy and human development, with a specialization in foreign policy and development from the UN University and the Maastricht University based in Netherlands. He recently completed his term as the youngest Secretary General of the Indian Lawyers Association, which is a voluntary association of lawyers in India. He's also the recipient of awards like the Best Youth Entrepreneur 2015 and Youth Icon of India 2016. Currently, he is the Indian representative of Human Rights and Democracy Network of the Youth Division at the Commonwealth Secretariat. Manuj, as I mentioned, is the Executive Secretary of the INALP. The INALP itself is a very interesting organization, and it has been created with, at its core, the belief that lawyers in India, legal professionals, policy professionals need a lot of capacity building support. And as part of that, they are doing a host of different activities, and Daksha has come on board as a partner. I will leave it to Manuj to sort of introduce the idea of INALP and how they went about conceptualizing INALP. But before that, welcome you all again to this conversation. We look forward to engaging further with INALP, as I mentioned, all through the year, and as students selected at the Daksha Fellowship, as well as some of our campus ambassadors. The benefit of this conversation, as well as further conversations with INALP, will stay on with you for the coming academic year. So with that, over to you, Manuj. Let me begin with requesting you to present some of the thought behind setting up INALP and what you are doing. And then, of course, we will go to the core of this conversation, which is on public policy and careers. A lot of our students and campus ambassadors have been requesting us to give them more guidance on how you build a career in public policy, and hence, we thought this would be a great substantive conversation to begin our partnership with INALP. So over to you, Manuj.
Thank you very much, Ananth, for this kind introduction, and it's an honor and pleasure to be with you and all of our attendees this evening. So about INALP. So last year we did a conference with uh, from our firm side, which is BSM Legal Advisors and Strategy Consultants, where I'm heading the international trade, investment, and climate governance advisory. We decided to do a conference, international conference, with the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, which is again an intergovernmental body established by the United Nations General Assembly, and 195 countries are member of that. They are the prime body and the main body of United Nations to deal with trade, investment, and development. So we decided to do that, and we always want uh, in any of our conference to have the main regulators, main policy makers, which is government. So we also approached the government, concerned Ministry of Commerce, and Ministry of Commerce and Industry, and the IT Ministry also, because there were some aspects of data trade and data protections were involved in that conference. So once we got, and also we discuss various multidisciplinary issues like FDI, and then Brexit, how the relations are going to be with United Kingdom and European Union after Brexit. There were representatives from both UK High Commission and the European Union delegation to India. And we did a lot of brainstorming, and also the most important point what we did is we are very much into, as a group, into policy interventions. So we sent a very detailed report and discussions of the discussions to the Ministry of Commerce and Industry for the e-commerce policy, and the e-commerce policy of India was very much influenced by that particular conference. So I'm really honored to say that we have a kind of input in that e-commerce policy, like policy influencing the policy and these kind of stuff. So when we did that, we were discussing, and we were discussing the result of the conference. Then a lot of colleagues said that why don't we transform it into the group into a very organized structure, an organization that can work to capacitate the legal professionals of India on all these subjects of international importance, whether it's FDI, international trade, international relations, ADR, or global best practices in terms of data protection. So we, I think August or September last year, we brainstormed with a lot of people, also from the Ministry of External Affairs, and some people from the different jurisdictions, including US and UK. Then we, after lots of brainstorming, we started INALP. And since then, we are trying to do a lot in terms of policy discourse, policy influencing, policy interventions. And at INALP, we have these three focuses. First is of research, second is of policy intervention, and third is of training / education. Because all these works together and goes hand in hand. So this is what we are doing, and we have a very diverse group based on practice areas and working groups, whether it's students division, general counsels divisions, litigation division. And then according to the interest of these people, we have various committees. So because of COVID-19, the work has been like disturbed a bit, and the team is working a lot on developing, updating the website time to time. And we are very much on ground. So we worked on the concept of American Bar Association, which I'm sure you are very well versed of, because you were in the States for your SJD and LLM from Pennsylvania University School of Law. So ABA is not a government body, as you know, but it influences a lot of policy in America in terms of legal profession, legal education, and all. So we are trying to create such a specific body for legal professionals, industry body for legal professionals in India, where we obviously are separate from the work of bar associations, like striving for the rights of lawyers, which our bar associations are doing very well. But in terms of uh, training them for public policy and other international stuff, we are doing this. And when we got to know about Daksha Fellowship, it was something that seems like an extension of what we're doing, and and we thought it would be a very good addition to partner with Daksha Fellowship and to develop the fellowship as much as we can and to have a greater participation. So it is always, and it's our pleasure to be with UP with Daksha Fellowship as industry partner. And I think a lot of our students and attendees have got the idea of what we are doing at INALP. So we very much look forward to working with the group of Daksha Fellowship and to provide all the resources and to learn from what new we can do in this area. Thank you, Nan.
Thanks, Manuj. I mean, that's a wonderful initiative really at INALP, and in many ways, this is exactly our vision about legal education as well, where we feel that there are huge gaps between the world of work and the world of learning. And in many ways, what we are aiming to do at Daksha is exactly to attempt closing that gap, and there the partnership with INALP, I'm sure, will matter a lot in the years to come, and help us, evolve our curriculum, design things better, and of course provide our students with the best opportunities out there for them to learn and interact with industry folks. Thank you for that overview, Manuj, and then let's quickly get to the focus of this conversation. And of course, to all students here, if any questions that may come up, kindly post it on the Q&A tab, and I will help moderate the session and help Manuj in responding to those questions. So Manuj, let me begin with a very basic question. As someone who has been trained formally in both law and public policy, right? Where do you see lawyers fitting in the public policy world? What kind of work can lawyers really do in a public policy setting? And of course, as a follow-on question to that, what do you think they need to then learn in addition to whatever they have been trained in order to satisfactorily discharge that role or responsibility?
Sure, Anand. Sure, that's a very good question. So, to start with, it is very important to understand what's the basic concept of public policy is. And Anand, feel free to tell me whenever my voice is going to break,
No,
because
it's perfectly fine. Right? Yeah, I
Yeah,
know. I know.
great,
No.
great. So the first issue in practice or education of public policy is basically to keep in mind as of problems, because public policy is fundamentally about solving problems. And since this is a process of solving problem at a large level, it is therefore important to have the knowledge of creating a policy that benefits all. So public policy education enables you to provide solutions. Those are backed by technicalities, fundamental statistics, and evidence. So evidence-backed education and policy is the one which matters a lot, and it creates a lot of impact. So, and I think here at Daksha, we are bringing you to an intersection of law and public policy, which hardly anyone is doing here in India. So the importance of public policy is basically is and can be understood in such a way that public policy shapes the lives of individuals all across the globe. And when designed and structured to achieve the well-being of individuals, public policy contributes a lot to human development also. So that's why like when I did my degree was both public policy and human development, because they are very much interrelated. And public policies are shaped by policy actors. It is their actions that contribute to defining policy problems and the approach to solve them. The effects of policy actors have an impact that often reaches much farther than initially intended and beyond the physical borders of nation states. So what we call about learning the best practices, for example, if a policy is made in India, which is very much suitable for a country like United States, then the impact goes beyond the physical borders. And God knows, and it is might possible that the United States government can also adopt that kind of policy. So this is how it influences the decision-making process and are, like, I would say, not very much restricted to the borders, like it's beyond borders also. Public policy is basically a process of involving many layers of policy actors, I mean, ranging from international organizations to local administrations. For example, let's learn this through an example.
Sure.
So if government, like for example, Chennai is suffering a lot from this water scarcity and all. So recently, I've got a project with UN Water, which is the again intergovernmental body of United Nations to deal with water and sanitation issue. And Chennai is one of our key areas, and will be the study the city where we'll be studying this. So in that kind of that sort
Sorry, Manoj, losing
of
you a little
process
bit.
while can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm saying, like, when we talk about Chennai, we need to include policy actors from local administration level, like for example, the mayor, the panchayat, and then the district administration, and then obviously the state government, the central government, and in the end it will be intergovernmental organizations like UN. So it's basically a very inclusive process, and it is about including actors from different levels, as I said, from international organizations to local administrations. So it is no longer the exclusive responsibility of politicians and civil servants. Like when you and I were discussing that, in the end, it's like up to the government to accept it or not. But when it comes to the formulation, it is not limited to politicians and civil servants. I mean, semi-private, private, and non-governmental parties are becoming increasingly important actors in all the stages of complex policy processes. I mean, you can say that ranging from conceptualization and design to the implementation and evaluation of policy actions. For example, at Commonwealth Secretariat, a lot of times the Secretariat engages, I think, the consultancies, the private consultants, to evaluate the impact of their policies for CARICOM countries, the Caribbean countries, and all. So we don't like it should not be think that if I'm not in government or I'm not a civil servant, I can't contribute to the policy formulation or policy impact assessment. But this has gone beyond the level. So this is what I'm trying to make you guys understand here. And and it also involves the public policy always involves a very important aspect of good governance. So the concept of good governance refers to efficient and effective policies striving to uphold the rule of law. So you see, policy and law goes hand in hand. Whenever we talk about any policies, whether it's a public health policy, foreign policy, climate policy, it has to sync with the rule of law, with good governance. So that's why it is very imperative, I think, in times like today, for lawyers to understand and learn the art of public policy. And experience shows that good governance is not something that can be implemented overnight, and it involves again a very robust procedure and a very time-taking procedure. So the development of a progressive and well-balanced good governance and public policy requires independent policy actors who will have benefited from a high quality training in policy analysis, risk assessment, policy design, policy monitoring, policy evaluation, and methods and techniques of policy research. So, Ananth, these are basically the points and the areas where a public policy professional has to be trained. Like then only he'll be able to come up with a policy which is well suited for all. So I'll again briefly say these points. These are policy analysis, the risk assessment, policy design, policy monitoring, policy evaluation, and methods and techniques for policy research. So this is what the full concept of public policy that I tried to quickly cover what I have learned from my education of public policy from these two universities. Thanks to them, the United Nations University and Maastricht University. This is something general perspective and overview of public policy. Now, coming to your first question, which was related to lawyers. Sorry, I'm making it second.
No, I think that's very essential. The way that you presented the information is very helpful to our fellows.
Yeah. So coming to the importance of public policy and what edge it can provide to lawyers and law professionals. I mean, for example, when most of us enter a law school, we have the expectation to go into litigation or judiciary, especially from the time where we started, Ananth, you and I. This was the only option we used to think about, litigation or judiciary in some form. And now it has been changed. And since the majority of years at law schools are devoted to teaching case law coupled with criminal and civil procedure, uh, there was not much scope to learn public policy and all this kind of stuff. So a growing number of law students these year have an interest in transactional law and dream of poring over documents related to mergers and acquisitions, cross-border transactions, and some contract disputes and all. However, the trend is that a large number of students these days, like in present times, have an interest in policy making and crafting the legislations. And but few students actually get into the public policy work because that is not typically an area of practice. So it contradicts what I'm saying, but it's true also, because sometimes it seems to be very fascinating. Okay, that I'll be working as a policy analyst, but unless and until you don't have a proper knowledge of that, getting into the practice of public policy is not at all easy. And that's why, again, I would like to focus that a fellowship like Daksha it can play a very important role. So this practice point is geared for the pre-law student or law student who may have an interest in legislative work, which is like completely different from the traditional practice of law. And I think perhaps a web series like House of Cards or The West Wing or Designated Survivors on Netflix inspire a lot of law students and attorneys to make a policy, to make a career in policy, or to get involved in advocating for certain causes that impacts the executive branch. And so these are some candid examples that I'm choosing, because a lot of the OTT platforms also creates some influence. At least one of the series has created a lot of influence on me to learn foreign policy in deep. So that's why I took this example. So it's the practice of law and policy making are very much related, and I think they require the development of similar skill sets of quality writing, advocacy, and networking. And coming to the Indian legal market, I would say that within the legal industry in India, we have seen an increasing number of lawyers transitioning into position in governmental advisory, policy making, and lobbying. And while I'm speaking this to you, I'm one of the example, like making a shift from law to public policy. So with many different commercial sectors undergoing regulatory changes, there has been a paradigm shift in the number of professionals from the legal field joining the policy teams of companies or advising independently. Because in this time, it has become very complex with the changing regulations, day-to-day changes in the entire world, to keep a pace with all the regulations that are being imposed by government. So for example, the companies need a person who is very much well-versed with the aspects of law, the knowledge of law, and also the art of public policy. So when, for example, you see the Senate sometimes, these houses in US, House of Representatives and all, they summon some of these representatives of the companies. Sometimes they are CEOs, but most of the times when the hearing is happening, it's a public policy head of that particular organization, for example, Google or anyone else that represents the government there, because she or he is the person who understand what and how to articulate with the government. So, and while talking to all these senators and policymakers, apart from the art of public policy making, it's very important to know the law. And that's how lawyers are the best professionals to understand and learn the art of public policy. And Anand, to trace it historically, I mean, large multinationals have been bound by international laws and codes of ethics, and the policy work was dictated as such. And post-liberalization, and as India is establishing its place in the global market, I mean, it has become apparent that policy making is now integral part for running a successful business in a country with its own unique set of challenges. I mean, you take an example of any company like Uber, you were explaining yesterday.
Right.
Unless and until you have a
Sorry, Manuj, you went on mute. Sorry.
it will be very difficult for you to run a company like Uber in India with so many regulations around the transport and all this sector. So, with ever-growing economic legislations in India, working with the government departments of handling government relations for a company is a great opportunity for a lawyer who has studied public policy. So,
Right. Manuj?
this gives exposure of dealing with policy matters. Yes, Anand.
No, sorry, you were breaking at one point. That's why.
Okay. Is it fine now?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. So what I want to say is this gives exposure of dealing with policy matters and maintaining industry government relations for the betterment of your business as well as the country's economy. So it has a lot of impact on all the I would say organizations, whether it's government, whether it's a profit making body, and lawyers certainly have an extra edge to play a leading role in policy matters and advisory role to their overall legal policy economic understanding better than any profession. So this is I think my perspective on how globally and in India public policy and mixing it with law is getting on trend, and I think people should understand, law professionals can understand very much the value of mixing a public policy, the importance of public policy education with the legal education. And very quickly, I would tell you the importance of public policy in law also by an example, by a case study. So there was a case of Hardy Exploration versus Government of India, Ministry of Petroleum Natural Gas. And one of my colleagues, he's a very well acclaimed ADR lawyer, arbitration lawyer, and in the United States. So he was engaged by the Government of India, Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. So in this case, I'll just give you a gist. There was no chance for India to win the case. And Ananth, you studied law, you know the New York Convention and everything. And while using this clause of specific performance and all, India was about to lose the case. But this guy, the lawyer I'm talking about, he is a trained public policy professional from Harvard Kennedy School. What he did is he applied the concepts of public policy in that particular case. And I'm not going to go in deep because it will take a lot of time for me to make you, like all of you, understand the case. But you can go and read about Hardy Exploration case versus Government of India case, and you can also type public policy. So you'll understand how well he articulated the use of public policy and winning that case for the Government of India. So see, again, a lawyer that was trained in public policy, it struck in his mind that I can use this weapon of public policy, and he made the case one for Government of India. So I mean, I can't explain how much important and how much beneficial it is again for the law professionals, because obviously if he won the case, he now has a landmark judgment on the basis of public policy in the using it in the court of law. Usually public policy is being used in bodies and organizations that are working on legislations like parliament, but using public policy in a court of law was something very different that he used, and which made him so much popular. So I think learning public policy for you as lawyers would be very much beneficial. And this is what all I have to say, Ananth, on this.
No, I think these are very, very interesting points there. In fact, there's a lot to process. But let me try to do this, in a manner where students can grapple with it. I think there are two very key points that you make. One is that there is a lot of importance and relevance that legal training brings to the public policy table. But equally, I think you also make the point that a lot of public policy training is very beneficial for those who want to do conventional lawyering work as well. So let's not sort of break this into sort of silos and assume that, only if you are interested in working as a policy professional should you really be interested in all of this, because increasingly lawyering is going in a direction where courts, arbitral tribunals, and other adjudicating bodies are increasingly looking at policy factors too. And speaking from my personal experience too, I am seeing a fair bit of that happen. To give you a very good example from the world I normally am engaged in, which is the technology law and policy world rather. I mean, if you look at something like the TikTok ban, right? I'm not talking about the recent ban of Chinese apps. I'm speaking about the Madurai High Court and the PIL, Madurai bench of the Madras High Court, and the PIL filed there. The fact that TikTok is a Chinese company and there is a huge Chinese element played a big role in the court coming out with an automatic ban, really, because there's a set of trust elements there, and it was really policy concerns in many ways that determined how the court initially came out with the ban. Of course, the ban was later lifted. My former senior, Mr. Arvind Datar, was appointed amicus curiae. And as amicus curiae, he again relied on a bunch of countering policy factors, like, for instance, the fact that there is a belief in the policy of free speech, right? And there is also a belief that when you come out with these bans, you have to also be in a position to monitor the ban, and that's not going to really happen. So multiple competing policy factors were actually raised by Mr. Datar to argue before the Madurai bench that you need to revoke this ban. So I think even for lawyers who are doing conventional litigation work today, policy factors become increasingly important, or the ramification of a particular decision on investment policy, for instance, is, I think, a classic example of a scenario where we need to look into policy factors. So before getting into the tools that lawyers need to get better at in order to do policy work, I wanted to pick on one particular aspect that you mentioned, or a word rather, which is lobbying. So in India, when we think about lobbying, Manuj, I mean, we have a very, very we look at it in a very pejorative way, right? I mean,
Yes.
not within our DNA. We don't like it. But the US, you have a lobbyist card, right? So it's a completely different culture. So in this culture where lobbying is not accepted in a legal sense, it's all done hush hush. How do you do this work, right? How do you become a policy professional in India, knowing fully well that lobbying is not a not a easily digested word? How do you do this work? Sorry, Manuj, you're on mute.
Sorry, Ananth. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I mean, India is a very conventional society, and like there's no harm in that. We always enjoy that conventionality, and we very much up to our values and everything. But lobbying here is understood in a very different manner. Lobbying is basically like it like, I don't know why it relates to money laundering or something like that, or a lobby. But lobbying is basically a group that works. It's basically a form of activism, I would say. It's a form of activism, how you push an agenda, a good agenda for the development of country or any group or any economy. For example, if we call about, for example, I'll give you an example. For the liberalization of legal market in India, we have two lobbies. So one is which is pro-liberalization, of which I am a part, and which is one which is against liberalization. So in that concept, we have to make the other colleagues understand that, for example, if a lawyer from Patna or any remote part of Uttar Pradesh or Bihar is there, he won't understand what is happening around the liberalization and everything. But with the help of that lobby, what we can do is we can generate all those kind of impacts, and then can tell the difference between what's the problem and what's the solution that it's going to bring. So when you said with something conventional mindsets in India, how how we can work in this lobby sector. See, India is again, I would say, a conventional society, but yeah.
No, we lost you
Can
for
you
a
hear me?
bit. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying, like, if India is a very conventional society, India is a very progressive society too, and and I thank the Western influence in that sense, that people are learning and understanding the importance of lobbying, because if you don't have a group backing you, you won't be like able to survive a lot, and like-minded people are very much needed for that. So that mindset is unchanging in the country. And very recently, talking about liberalization again, I saw some very strong posts on LinkedIn by some young advocates on records,
Hmm.
and they were of the view. So they are understanding this concept, and they want to become part of that lobby, and they don't feel any harm in that. So, and this is all about the wave, the changing of mindsets, and it's about campaigning. It's about lectures like those who make the people aware that this discourse is very important. If you don't have a discourse on topics like these, it will never come to the knowledge of, for example, when I said a person from the remote area of Uttar Pradesh or say Bihar.
Hmm.
So, this is what I believe.
Right, and it's a form of advocacy. You're absolutely right about that. So now coming to the question of public policy tools, right? As a trained public policy professional who went abroad, did masters in a very prestigious university, two of them, in fact. What are the new skills and tools that you learned, which you really feel that lawyers cannot ignore if they want to become full-end public policy professionals and move to that side of work?
Sure, Anant. So the most important thing what a policy professional understand.
Sorry, we lost you there for a very brief while.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, as policy professionals, we need one training which is very important, and as lawyers, we are very much imbibed with that kind of training while being while studying at our law schools and all. It is of the negotiation, and negotiation is something that public policy professional has to learn. So I think one of the main aspects from these universities and through my education, I got to understand and to on my skills is in the area of negotiations. But after that, it's very important, as I said in starting, to understand the skill set of policy analysis and risk assessment, policy design, policy monitoring, evaluation methods, techniques of policy research. And so these are on professional levels, but when it comes to education, we have to take a step back and to understand that mm, I mean, negotiations and strategy skills are very essentials for any policy making and in the field of diplomacy. And why I say negotiation again and again, because people understand that a negotiation is often like it's not about outmaneuvering the other party, although that may happen in a negotiation, but rather about applying diplomatic negotiating skills to finding the possibility of consensus, and that's how policies are made. For example, let's take an example of a country like US. You have Democrats and Republicans, and both of them are in strong positions. So unless and until you reach to a consensus, you will not be able to formulate a policy for your country and to get that in place, like working. So basically, success in public policy making is based on negotiations, which is closely associated with having a clear strategy. So as a public policy analyst, you should have a clear strategy, and where possible points of compromise have already been considered. So as a public policy professional, you should know that where I have to compromise on my policy, where or my principles can compromise on that policy, on that part. And we should always have a detailed planning of the various phases of negotiations while doing. So negotiations is again a very important part of policy making. And then policy analysis, these are basically academic aspects that I would say, but negotiating and analytical skills and strategizing are very much important for a public professionals and public policy professional. And when I say and the training of public policy, it should be drawn upon several academic disciplines such as political science, data analysis, sociology, which is very important, public finance, because most of the policies are related to the economic aspect or the fiscal part, sometimes international relations, and public management. And a very interesting point where the way I have been taught about public policy is through problem-based learning. That works by taking students through the discussion, analysis, and the solution of problems in 7 steps. I think we very much like, if you remember, we also discussed this introducing the problem-based learning at Daksha, because it could be again a very important way of teaching, and will give a interesting edge to our fellows in that. So this is what I think public policy professionals tools to become an expert in that.
No, I think the fact that you mentioned problem-based learning really makes me reflect on our curriculum and our pedagogic approach overall, which is very much centered around the idea of learning by doing, right? And you give a very focused kind of problem, and then you give the theory surrounding it so that you come to class. By the time you are in class, you've already read the material, right? You know the theory. And then you just work in teams, or you work individually, depending on how we structure it. And then you just solve it and give your solution. And I think that's a better way to approach these subjects. And on the point of negotiation, again, I think, our bootcamp model at Daksha might really be a very useful way for students to master negotiation, to actually do it, right, across form teams and do it across with each other, right? And then once you're pitted against the other, you get a sense of how well you are faring at it. And I think that's a great way to learn. And as far as some of the other tools that you mentioned, the other skills, we are doing some of that in our program. Not everything, of course, because we are not a full-on public policy program. But some of the things that we are doing are, for instance, data and decision making, right? I mean, how do you understand data? For us, that's, I think, critical to any sort of, public policy professional. We are also doing a very interesting module on critical thinking, because we feel that a lot of what policy professionals are confronted with on a daily basis need application of critical thinking skills. So we are really sort of doing that as part of our work and well-being lab. I mean, these are some of the things that we are doing. So that brings me to the next, important segment, which is, where do lawyers who are interested in public policy find careers, find ways in which they can be gainfully employed?
Sure, Ananth. Am I audible, Ananth?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you say about the career prospects, even the sky is not the limit, I would say. So basically, the students who can work as public policy actors, and I'm talking about lawyers who can work as public policy actors, are at various levels, like local or whether international. And specifically, I would connect it with Daksha, that how Daksha alumni could be seen like after they graduate as a first cohort. I mean, as a Daksha alumni, I presume, I think that you would be will be a trained policymaker and analyst who go on to work in public policy institutions and academia or NGOs or international consultancies, starting your own firms like we did. So our firm, which is BSM Legal Advisors, is not a law firm. It's basically a provider of international strategies, consultancies, and always we are being hired by various countries, various sovereign states on negotiating for the negotiations of different kind of agreements and bilateral agreements that they are doing with the other governments. So these are the possibilities, and like our alumni at Daksha can identify and review different policy options and implement the adequate policies at a ministry or at a government department. And in their work, they can integrate legal, social, cultural, political, and financial aspect while ensuring the economic viability and sustainability of their policies. So it's not like that only the employer will like ask you in the job description, okay, I want this. So Ananth, I was involved in a recruitment process of a very prestigious university in UK, and I'm developing a public policy bachelor's for them. So
Okay.
when we were recruiting the masters students for them, we were looking we didn't like mention a lot of things in the requirements that we wanted for our students, but we really wanted to understand from them also that what they can provide us and what else they have apart from being lawyers, because that was again mainly for lawyers and students from political science. So our alumni, our students who will be like lawyers will be trained in public policy should know this, that they have a lot to offer, and they can come up with different avenues. I mean, they can propose a different project which is not even thought by anyone in an organization, and that can open an option of employment for them in a particular organization. So that's also a kind of skill set that students will be getting after a public policy training. And I think our alumni at Daksha can also work throughout the world in public and private institutions of both economically strong and economically unstable countries, including national, regional, and local governments, ministries, social protection schemes, market authorities, NGOs, international organizations like WTO, UNCTAD. I mean, if you know the policy aspect, whether it's a health policy, again a climate policy, or tech policy, options are unlimited. And I think that at Daksha we are proud to say that we can provide you those skills where your options of job become unlimited. So yeah.
Right. Right. In fact, yeah, there's a question too here on that. I mean, on legislative drafting in particular, Neelkhand, who's part of our cohort, has actually asked, is it practical to expect career opportunities as a consultant in legislative drafting in India? Manuj?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there are opportunities, and I can see in this list one of my juniors. She was assisting one of the, I would say, there are standing committees in Indian Parliament on various issues, like standing committees on external affairs and then whatnot. So sometimes these member of parliaments invite, and there are some fellowships like LAMP fellowship and some sort of these, where you will be assessed. Like if you have a public policy training, you can obviously be invited to be as a consultant or or a employee or intern. I don't know whatever the structure that they will follow,
Right.
but yeah, you can expect a career opportunity there very well. And I mean, so you see in the TV in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, apart from the MPs, there are a lot of people who are sitting there. For example, the Secretary General of Lok Sabha was like one of the Secretary Generals of Lok Sabha is my mentor, Dr. Subhash C. Kashyap, who is a renowned constitutional expert. And he very much focuses on the aspects of public policy for lawyers to understand. And this can give them edge and opportunities to work maybe in the Parliament of India. Why not?
Right, absolutely. This is, I think, been a great, conversation about an introductory sense of what public policy means to lawyers, and where lawyers can really add a lot of value to the public policy ecosystem, while at the same time guiding them with what additional skill sets that they need to be trained in. As a final, sort of interaction with you, Manoj, around this whole theme, could you share some of your interesting experiences as a public policy professional? What you have learned in that journey, where you felt you could have maybe even done better, and how you would like to take this journey forward and ahead?
Sure, Anant. I mean, that's one of the interesting part for me to talk about, like the experience that I have got, and like what public policy has added to my CV and my, I would say, personality. So a very quick example or experience I would share. So as you know that I'm the Indian representative of Human Rights and Democracy network of the Youth Division of Commonwealth Secretariat. So Commonwealth Secretariat is again a intergovernmental organization like United Nations, and they work for all the 53 now 54 Commonwealth countries. So they do a conference which is known as Commonwealth Heads of Government Meeting 2000, after every 2 years they do it. It was supposed to happen in Rwanda this year, but because of COVID now it's happening in 2021. So in 2018, while I was pursuing my master's in double master's in public policy, they invited, like the British Prime Minister invited me to a very exclusive, very exclusive reception hosted for the heads of state of 53, 54 countries. And I was amazed at why I was selected, because yeah, obviously I was the Indian representative, but they wanted someone who is very much trained in negotiations and public policy skills, and who can give a young person's insight on what should be the policy of reviving Commonwealth as a channel of trade and investment and whatnot for all these countries, and to utilize the I would say the expertise from all the countries. So if had it been a case that I'm only a lawyer, no one would have called me up. And I mean, I got a personal invitation from the British Prime Minister just because of that. And then they were hearing it to me, and I had to present a policy brief on trade, investment, and climate change. These were the topics that I've been given, and I've been presenting it to 54 heads of state. I mean, that was amazing. And that's a opportunity that I got because of being a public policy professional. So you get into the direct engagement with all these kind of policy stakeholders, policy creators, and policy implementers. Secondly, like the conference I was telling you about last year, we had this conference, the International Trade and Investment. There was a lot of hackling going around, like why government should be a partner in that and not. Then we again had a meeting there, and I was there. So, you know how conventional the Indian society is, but if you have the knowledge, right knowledge of the subject, and which I think I had at that time, and I was able to convey the idea, and the government was ready to come on board, ready to listen to us, ready to accept our recommendations on e-commerce policy. So that's one of the great experience again. And then various opportunities, like I was the youngest person to be invited to the one of the diplomatic missions in Sierra Leone, where I was with the President of Ghana and some member of parliaments from Australia, New Zealand, and some other Commonwealth countries. Then it was again for the public policy and lawyer thing mixed, because it gives you the best skill to like mix it, and the way you are gonna speak, everything gets changed, and they listen to you. Whatever you are doing, whatever you are working, it is going to be recognized. It is going to be accepted, backed with all the evidences and data analysis that you'll do with the knowledge of your public policy. And being a lawyer, I think it's a boon for a public lawyer to learn public policy. And again, ADR issues, I had some meetings with the stakeholders on making Indian arbitration hub, and how we can create in India as a preferred destination for arbitration, and also on cyber laws and data privacy. We had this, like I got an opportunity to organize a roundtable conference in the Parliament of India due to the engagement we got around the subject of data privacy and protection. So these are some of the examples. As a policy professional, I got the opportunity to do that, and with all the knowledge, because see, if you don't have knowledge, you'll not be able to talk with the experts on that topic. So it needs very specialized, and I think that's what we are doing at Daksha. We are going into specializations, 3 of them very important, very focused: law and regulatory aspect, then the tech policy, and then the ADR. So specification is the key, Ananth, and that's going to help lots of lawyers and turning them into successful public policy professionals.
Wonderful. In fact, part of our learning model at Daksha is really that in addition to all the knowledge that we provide, and of course the pedagogic approach which I mentioned, the learning by doing model, it's simply that our fellows are exposed to inspiring figures. And really, when I conclude this conversation, that's all I really have to say, Manoj, that yours has been a truly inspiring journey, right? Because this is someone who has come from a generation where we were, like you rightly said, taught to imagine law as basically being shaped in courts or in parliament. And nobody really taught us that there is something called public policy and you can build a career. And we have all really learned while, in this journey. And you are a very, very robust example of someone who has just actually picked up, information from multiple sources, decided that this is where you want to go, and instead of doing an LLM, decided to pursue a public policy double masters, and have really applied your skills as a lawyer to a different world, and really is excelling in that. And that's a genuinely inspiring story. And I'm sure there are Daksha fellows out here, and who we have admitted into the program, who will realize the value of this kind of journey, and will of course make use of the INALP partnership to be mentored by you as they begin the program and gain the most that they can, and really get this kind of role model guiding them through this program. Thank you, Manoj, once again for taking time out on a Sunday evening. We know that you're extremely busy with a lot of other commitments as well. To take this 1 hour out and to engage with our fellows, we are extremely grateful to you for this conversation. And thank you so much. And we look forward to continuing this engagement as we begin the fellowship in right earnest, and to have you on as guest faculty as well at the fellowship. Thank you, Manu.
Absolutely, Ananth. It's my pleasure and honor once again to speak to you and to understand a lawyer's, like a hardcore lawyer's perspective also on that, who has earned his education both in India and in top institutions in India and the US. So I think the discourse like these are going to help a lot to our fellows and the prospective students that will be applying to our fellowship. So again, I would like to thank you for having me, and I would like to thank all our participants to join us for this wonderful session. And and both of us, Ananth and I, look forward to your applications for our fellowship, and I wish you all lots of good health and success, and stay safe. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ananth.
Thanks, Manoj. Bye. Take care.